Am I the a-hole for walking away after finding out my girlfriend cheated, and the kid I raised for 5 years isn't mine? I, 34M, feel like my entire world just imploded. There is no other way to describe the sensation of having the ground beneath your feet turn into smoke. I am writing this from a spare bedroom in a friend's apartment, surrounded by 3 duffel bags that contain the remains of a life I thought was permanent. For 6 years, I was with my girlfriend, 32F. I thought she was it, my person. We met in our late 20s, both of us established in our careers and looking for something that wasn't just a fleeting spark. When I met her, it felt like the universe finally made sense. We built what I thought was a solid life together. We had the routines, the inside jokes, the shared bank accounts, and the plans for a future that stretched out for decades. About a year into our relationship, she became pregnant. It wasn't planned. We hadn't even discussed marriage seriously yet, though I knew it was coming. When she showed me the test, I remember my hands shaking. It wasn't just fear, it was this overwhelming sense of purpose. I was thrilled. Scared, yeah, but ready. More than ready. I remember going out that same night and buying a "World's Best Dad" mug, not because I was a cliché, but because I wanted to manifest that reality. I wanted to be the man she and that baby deserved. I was there for everything. I didn't miss a single ultrasound. I remember the cold gel on her stomach and the rhythmic, galloping sound of the heartbeat filling the room. I held her hand so hard I thought I'd break her fingers. I was the one who went on the 2 a.m. craving runs for specific pickles or the exact brand of ice cream she needed. I sat through every childbirth class, took notes like I was studying for the bar exam, and spent weeks assembling the crib, making sure every screw was tightened to perfection. When the day finally came, I watched our son come into this world. I was the one who cut the cord. I remember the weight of him in my arms for the first time, this tiny, screaming, red-faced human who looked nothing like me yet, but who I felt an instantaneous, bone-deep connection to. I swore right then and there that I'd spend the rest of my life protecting him. I built my life around that promise. My career moves were made to ensure he had a good school district. My hobbies shifted from solo mountain biking to finding the best toddler-friendly parks. Every decision I made for half a decade was filtered through the lens of being a father. Fast forward 5 years. Things started to feel off. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when the shift happened, but the atmosphere in our home changed. It wasn't a blow-up fight or a sudden disaster. It was a slow cooling. She was distant, defensive, and always glued to her phone. If I walked into the room while she was texting, she'd tilt the screen away or lock it immediately. If I asked who she was talking to, she'd give me a short, clipped answer, usually a friend I hadn't heard her mention in months or a work colleague. The intimacy died first. Then the conversation. We became roommates who shared a child and a bed, but nothing else. My gut was screaming at me that something wasn't right. I tried to talk to her, to ask if she was unhappy or if we needed counseling, but she'd just call me paranoid or say she was stressed with work. She made me feel like I was losing my mind, like I was the problem for noticing the distance. I finally looked. I'm not proud of it, but the gaslighting had reached a point where I needed to know if I was crazy or if she was lying. One night, she fell asleep on the couch and her phone was sitting on the coffee table. It buzzed with a notification. I picked it up, and the preview on the screen was enough to make my stomach turn. I found messages. Explicit ones. With another guy. But it wasn't just a recent fling. As I scrolled, my heart sinking further with every swipe, I realized the timeline went back. Way back. There were photos, videos, and conversations that spoke of a history I knew nothing about. When I confronted her the next morning, she denied it. She looked me straight in the eye and told me I was misinterpreting friendly banter. She kept the lie going until she couldn't anymore, until I showed her the screenshots I had taken. Turns out, she'd been cheating for years. Not one mistake. Not a one-time slip-up. Years. Even during the early days. Even when I was out getting her those 2 a.m. snacks. The betrayal of the cheating was enough to kill the relationship, but there was a darker thought looming in the back of my head, a poisonous seed that had been planted the moment I saw how long the affair had lasted. I looked at our son. I looked at his features, trying to find a trace of myself in his eyes or the shape of his jaw. People always said he looked like her side of the family, and I had never questioned it. I don't even know why I did it, but I decided to get a DNA test for our son. I didn't tell her. I did a mail-in kit. The days spent waiting for those results were the longest of my life. I didn't eat. I barely slept. I'd sit on the floor playing Legos with him, and I'd feel this intense wave of guilt for even doubting him. I think deep down, I already knew what I was going to find, I just didn't want to believe it. I wanted the test to prove me wrong so I could focus on being angry about the affair. And when the results came back, he wasn't mine. The probability of paternity was 0%. That moment broke me in a way I didn't know was possible. It felt like my chest had been ripped open. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, the paper in my hand, staring at the words until they blurred. It felt like every bedtime story, every "I love you, Dad," every scraped knee and hug and laugh, all of it, was suddenly just a cruel joke. Every memory of the last 5 years was instantly retroactively poisoned. The first time he walked? I wasn't cheering for my son, I was cheering for a lie. His first words? A deception. I loved that little boy more than anything in this world. I still do. That's the most agonizing part. You can't just turn off 5 years of fatherhood like a light switch. But I can't even look at him without feeling this gut punch of betrayal. When he looks at me with that innocent trust, all I see is the face of the woman who used him as a pawn to keep me in a life built on a foundation of garbage. And the worst part? None of it was his fault. He's innocent in all of this. He's just a kid who thinks I'm his dad. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just went into the bedroom, packed a bag, and left. I told her I couldn't do it anymore. I showed her the results, and for the first time in 6 years, she was silent. There was no more gaslighting, no more "you're paranoid." Just the weight of what she had done finally crashing down in the room. I told her I couldn't stay with someone who lied to me on that level, someone who let me believe a child was mine, who let me sign a birth certificate and build a life under false pretenses. Now she's calling me heartless for abandoning my son, saying I'm ruining his life. She's sending me long, rambling texts about how paternity doesn't make a father and how I'm the only dad he's ever known. Her family and some mutual friends are piling on too. They're calling my phone, leaving voicemails, saying I'm cruel for walking away after being his dad for 5 years. They say the boy is grieving, that he's crying for me, and that I'm a monster for punishing him for his mother's mistakes. But how am I supposed to stay? How do you live with someone who looked you in the eye every day and lied about something so huge? Every time I look at her, I see the years of deception. Every time I would look at him, I'd be reminded of the man she was actually with. How do you keep pretending after finding out the life you built was never really yours? It's like discovering you've been living in a movie set and someone just pulled the curtain back to show you the plywood and the actors. It's been a couple of weeks since I left. I'm staying with a friend for now, and I started therapy. My therapist tells me I'm suffering from a specific kind of trauma, a total dismantling of my reality. I didn't realize how much of myself I'd lost in that relationship until it was over. I had become so focused on being the perfect family man that I didn't see I was being erased. I'm angry, yeah, but mostly I just feel empty. It's a hollow, ringing silence in my head where the noise of a family used to be. She's been blowing up my phone every day, switching between apologizing and begging me to come home for our son's sake. 1 minute she's sobbing into the voicemail, telling me she loves me and made a horrible mistake. The next, she's cold and accusatory, telling me I never really loved him if I can walk away this easily. Her family is calling me selfish for abandoning him, but honestly, I don't think they understand what this feels like. They aren't the ones who were lied to for 2,190 days. It's not about punishing anyone, it's about surviving something that broke me from the inside out. The kid, I still can't call him anything else, the word son feels like a hot coal in my mouth, keeps asking where I am. I've heard him in the background of her calls, asking when Daddy is coming home. That part destroys me. I love him. I always will. I still have his drawing of us stuck to the back of my phone case because I can't bring myself to throw it away. But I can't step back into that house, not right now. I can't be the man they want me to be while I'm this broken. Maybe someday I'll find a way to be there for him in some form, but I need to heal before I can even think about that. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not dad to a child that isn't mine and partner to a woman who doesn't exist. I don't know if I made the right choice. The guilt is a heavy, suffocating thing. I'm grieving a child who's still alive and a life that never really existed. So, am I the a-hole for leaving after finding out the truth? Update. It's been about 2 months since everything came apart, and the word update feels too small for what actually happened in that time. Nothing about this has settled into something manageable. If anything, the shock wore off and exposed something heavier underneath it. The kind of weight that doesn't hit all at once, but presses down steadily until even simple things feel like work. After I left, there wasn't any clean break. I didn't disappear into some quiet reset where I could process things in peace. It followed me immediately. My phone didn't stop. At first it was constant calls and messages from her, shifting tone depending on the hour. Early mornings were apologies, long texts about regret and how she never meant for things to go this far. Afternoons leaned into desperation, asking me to come back, saying we could fix things if I just tried. Nights were different. That's when the anger showed up. Accusations, insults, reminders that I was walking away from a child who did nothing wrong. I stopped responding after the first few days because there was nothing to say that wouldn't drag me back into it. Silence didn't stop anything. It just changed the direction. Her family got involved. Calls from numbers I didn't recognize, voicemails telling me I was selfish, that I was destroying a kid's life because I couldn't handle adult problems. A couple of people I used to consider friends repeated the same thing in different words. No one asked what actually happened beyond the surface version she gave them. In their version, I left. That was enough for them. The legal situation started not long after that. I didn't take her threat seriously at first because it sounded too absurd to be real. Then I got served papers. Seeing it in writing changed something. It made the whole thing feel colder, more calculated. This wasn't just fallout from emotions anymore. It was structured, formal, intentional. I found a lawyer within a week. I didn't have the luxury of waiting or hoping it would resolve itself. Sitting in that office, going through everything from the beginning, felt like dissecting my own life in front of a stranger. Dates, timelines, details I hadn't even fully processed yet. Saying it out loud made it feel more real than it had when it was just in my head. The explanation I got wasn't comforting. Because I had been there from the start, because my name was on documents, because I had acted as his father for years, there was a possibility the court could still hold me responsible financially. The phrase they used was established parental role. It didn't matter that it was built on a lie. What mattered was that it existed. That hit differently than the initial discovery. The cheating, the paternity test, all of that was personal. This was something else. This was the idea that doing what I thought was right could turn into something used against me. That stepping up, committing, building a life around someone else could be reframed as an obligation I never knowingly agreed to. The case is still ongoing. There's no resolution yet. Just meetings, documents, back-and-forth communication that feels more like a negotiation than anything tied to real life. Her argument leans heavily on what's best for the child. My side focuses on the fact that I was misled from the beginning. Somewhere in the middle of that is a kid who doesn't understand any of it. I haven't seen him since the day I went back to get the rest of my things. That wasn't planned. I thought I could go in, grab what was mine, and leave without complications. It didn't happen that way. He saw me through the window before I even made it to the door. By the time I stepped inside, he was already running toward me. There's no way to prepare for that moment. No way to make it easier. He didn't know anything had changed. To him, I had just been gone for a while. He was excited. Talking fast, showing me something he'd been working on, asking questions I couldn't answer without breaking something open that I had no control over. I didn't stay long. It turned into an argument almost immediately. She came into the room and the tone shifted. What could have been a quiet, complicated moment turned into something louder. It ended with her telling me to leave if I wasn't going to act like a father. That word again, thrown out like it hadn't been the center of the entire situation. I left because staying would have made it worse. Not just for me, but for him. There wasn't any version of that interaction that could have ended cleanly once it started going in that direction. Since then, I haven't gone back. The hardest part isn't the anger or even the betrayal. It's the absence of routine. The small things that used to fill up a day without needing to think about them. Getting up early because someone else is already awake. Making breakfast for two instead of one. The noise of a house that felt lived in. All of that is gone, and what replaces it is quiet in a way that doesn't feel peaceful. Therapy has helped in the sense that it gives structure to everything. There's a place to put the thoughts instead of letting them loop endlessly. The focus hasn't been on forcing any kind of forgiveness or resolution. It's been more about understanding what actually happened and what it did to me. Not just the obvious parts, but the way it shifted how I see things in general. Trust is the obvious one. That's the easiest thing to point to. What's harder to explain is how it affects smaller interactions. Conversations feel different. Intentions feel less clear. There's a hesitation that wasn't there before, even in situations that have nothing to do with what happened. Work has been a mixed experience. I went back sooner than I probably should have because sitting around all day wasn't helping. Having something to focus on was better than being alone with everything. At the same time, it's not the same as it was before. People know something happened. They don't know the details, but they know enough to treat me differently. Some keep their distance. Others try to be supportive in ways that don't always land right. It's not their fault. There isn't really a correct way to respond to something like this from the outside. Financially, things are tighter than they've ever been. Legal fees add up fast. There's no way around that. It's another layer of stress that sits on top of everything else. Not enough to break anything on its own, but combined with everything else, it's noticeable. I haven't started anything new. No dating, no attempts to rebuild that part of my life. The idea of it doesn't feel realistic right now. It's not about holding on to the past. It's more about recognizing that there's still too much unresolved to bring someone else into it. The photos and videos are still there. I haven't deleted them. Not because I don't want to move forward, but because getting rid of them feels like erasing something that was real to me, even if the foundation of it wasn't what I thought it was. That time existed. The experiences were real on my end. Removing all evidence of that doesn't change what happened. Some days are easier than others. Not in a dramatic way, just in small differences. Being able to get through a day without everything tying back to it. Then there are days where something minor brings it all back into focus without warning. The legal outcome is still uncertain. That's the part that hangs over everything. Until it's resolved, there's no clear endpoint. Just a process that moves forward whether I'm ready for it or not. As for whether I made the right decision, I don't have a clean answer. It doesn't feel like a choice between right and wrong. It feels like choosing between two outcomes that both come with consequences I didn't ask for. What I do know is that staying would have meant accepting something I couldn't live with. Leaving meant losing more than I was prepared for. Either way, there wasn't a version of this where everything worked out. Right now, it's just about getting through it without letting it define everything that comes next.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.